Next Steps Committee meeting. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to listen to a couple of speakers, and we're going to look at what they have to say in regards to the whole idea of what the building that we're considering, what its focus can be, what the mission, and how what you'll hear tonight fits into our mission. And I thought I'd tell you why I think this is important. Is I attended every forum at the last renovation renovation project that came up. And one of the things that everyone said is, besides the money issue, was declining enrollment, and that the district doesn't seem to know where it's going. There's no vision. There's no plan. And one of the things that I think we have to deal with is answering that question. And I know the answer, and Paul knows the answer because we've been involved with the school system. But I think for people who have not been directly involved with the school system, we do have a vision, and I think what we'll listen to tonight is where that is going to take us and why that is important as we go out into the community to learn what other people are saying. The issue might come up, well, you know, where are you going? Why do we need this? You know, this is a lot of money. Why do we need all this expense? You know, just to give you an example, a very well-respected person in Great Barrington stood up at a forum and said, well, I don't know why we need this project because we're getting kids into Yale, Harvard, MIT, and it seems to be that this program is very good with what we have. And people at the forum said, yeah. What's the need? So that's why we're doing this tonight. We're going to listen to some different viewpoints, and I think that's really important for all of us at this table to keep in mind why we're doing this and how it's going to affect where we're going later on. Okay? Let me introduce Sean Flynn first, who will be our first presenter. Sean was recently appointed in June as the CVTE coordinator for the Berkshire Hills Regional School District. I've worked with Sean for over 20 years, as does Paul. He's a marvelous person. This is a perfect position for him. He brings a wealth of experience and information and hands-on working with kids, and above all, enthusiasm for what he's doing. So without further ado, Sean Flynn.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for allowing me to take a few minutes of your time. I'd really like to make sure I have plenty of time for community members that are here to speak on behalf of needs of in their specific areas of what they see as important things for us to be considering related to agriculture as well as industry and advanced manufacturing. Steve Boyd represents that now. So I want to make sure I give plenty of time for you to hear from them. So what I did was I put together just a quick synopsis of kind of some of the work that I've been doing since I took this position at the beginning of the school year, which was essentially the school committee and Dr. Dillon, Dr. Wine asked me to basically take a deep look at where are we going relative to career vocational and technical education, and specifically addressing the needs of a larger population of our student body, getting a sense of what are going to be the needs in order for us to do right by those programs and providing the opportunities for those students to go on and have sustainable futures, ideally here in the Berkshires, but wherever they decide to go. So we've been doing that work at the same time, really looking at all of our programs in a much more coherent way than maybe we've done in a long time. We've been doing a lot of work with an organization called the Great Schools Partnership, in which we're really assessing all of our practices and programs and structures to decide where are we going, not just next year, but really for the foreseeable future. So first and foremost, the idea is that we're looking at all of our practices, programs, and structures through the lens of three things, and really the types of things that we're looking to try to expand upon or improve or add on to or eliminate we look at it through the lens of college, career, and life readiness. All three of those need to go together. And when we think about college, we can't think about it anymore as being just simply this notion of the liberal arts education. That in fact, college is really what when we talk about college, we're talking about post-secondary education. That anybody who's going to be able to have an opportunity for a sustainable future is going to need to be a lifelong learner, given the expectations that the rate of change that happens in our society now. So all students are going to need to be ready to have the capacity to be able to do that and change rapidly, because they're going to be very often going to be changing careers, and in many cases they may even be having to evolve into careers and professions that haven't even been created yet. So all of our students are going to need to be prepared to pursue post-secondary learning at some point along the way, whether they go on to a liberal arts college, a design school, an engineering or tech school, whatever that might be, apprenticeships in specific trades. All of those, they will need to have the strong skills and knowledge to be able to pursue that, whatever they need to pursue. We know that deeper learning is going to be important. A different approach to working towards mastery is a better integration of learning, the elimination of siloed learning. Our program has been built around specific academic departments that really operate very separately from one another, which doesn't support better integration on the part of the students in terms of what they are learning throughout their day. So we need to have more opportunities to create better systems for that to happen. The three main areas as it relates to CBTE and what we see are being important things for make sure that we're building in a more robust programming. One could be broadly treated as the automotive and the trades, the kind of skilled, hard labor trades that we most identify with vocational programming, of which we have a Chapter 74 automotive technology program currently, but it operates based around a schedule that's driven by an elective model that's more appropriate for college prep classes. So students need to have provided with longer periods of time to work on projects in those courses. We need to be better prepared to provide applied learning for those classes, for those students, where they're having context to understand the science behind much of what they're doing in those particular fields. In the trades, the construction trades, we used to have a metal fabrication program, an electronics program, a wood technology program, and we had agreements to be collaborative with a house building program, carpentry program in Lee, as well as I'm missing someone. Maybe that's it. So anyway, all those programs were eliminated over a period of time just based on enrollment. But much of that was also just in terms of the systems and structures that we had in place at the time. We really didn't have the forethought and the capacity to really understand how we needed to do a better job of promoting those opportunities for students and the potential for really sustainable futures in those fields. So we did a disservice to a large population who really could have used those programs to be self-sustainable. So now we're looking to try to use existing structures that we have in place to deliver some sort of contextual science, applied science courses in order to give students what they would need to be able to go into the trades if they wanted to become an electrician or a plumber or go into HVAC or even potentially surveying or just working as a carpenter. We want to make sure that we're giving them exposure that they need based around the sciences. So we're going to be offering a course next year in applied science, applied engineering. With that in mind, the second area is sustainable agricultural and environmental science. We feel like right now our agriculture program is a standalone program a good distance away from the rest of our physical program here at Monument. We need to figure out a way to make sure we bring them more into an integrated approach, ideally closer to our existing building down the road if possible, and also provide for better collaboration between the agriculture program itself and potentially our science department. Because again, applied contextual learning that's a logical place for that to be taking place. The third area is one in which we're really trying to grow in a more robust way is advanced manufacturing, applied engineering and technology. That's the area where we need a much kind of deeper dive into expanding our capacity in order to be able to support that. We know that there's good opportunities in those fields that are coming, and we're working with Stephen Boyd, who's the president of Boyd Technologies and spearheading the Berkshire Innovation Center in order to start to think about ways in which we can provide those opportunities for our students to have them be prepared for those fields. So based on those things, the big things that I'll just try to hit on really quickly around what we need to make sure are happening in order for those three somewhat distinctly different areas to have to provide a better experience for our students is for them to make sure that, again, applied contextual learning needs to be central to that program. Cross-disciplinary collaboration, like we need to think about how can we can better utilize some of our existing more what normally would be more academic programs in order to better support students who are interested in those fields. And we also need to be creating physical spaces where that can be happening a little bit better than it is right now. I think the other things I probably want to update you on are we know we're not going to, it's not going to be necessarily feasible for us to create 5 new programs. But we think we can reorganize ourselves in certain ways to better utilize our resources. We think we can do a better job of really providing more opportunities for the community and business partners to be part of the experience here and providing project-based real learning experiences for students. And we also think that we need to see some of our unique strengths that we offer, particularly around design. We have world-class arts here. We have a fantastic art and design program. We think design thinking is an important element to just about everything that's happening in our economy now. And so we want to have all of our students be able to have that as a strength when they walk out of Monument, to be able to have some capacity around design thinking and have a mentality to embrace innovation. And then with that in mind, we have 3 major grants that we've applied for that we're in the thick of working with right now. One is the Innovative Pathways grant that has been Christy Farina and I applied for through the Department of Education, in which we utilize the Berkshire Blueprint in terms of industry needs specific to Berkshire County. That was developed by the Berkshire County Regional Employment Board. And the 2 areas that we wrote a grant for that we've moved on to round 2 of, and we feel like we have a really good chance of getting an implementation grant for next year, is around advanced manufacturing, where we are going to take 2 existing courses in which students would be, in order to be considered to be part of this pathway cohort, they would take a course in applied science that I just described to you, as well as exploring computer science, and upon successfully completing those, they would be able to move on to being able to take 2 free classes at Berkshire Community College through dual enrollment, as well as being provided with a specific internship in that field, which would ultimately lead to potential opportunities to work afterwards. The other area that we're partnering with an innovative pathway with this innovative pathway grant is in medical care, with Fairview Hospital as our community partner. And again, again, BCC supporting us in providing a dual enrollment for students to be able to take 2 college classes at BCC while they're still in high school, hopefully for free. So that's an example of us saying rather than think we're going to be able to create a brand new allied health program, we have a fantastic community partner, Fairview Hospital, which have great resources available to us. We think there are other opportunities for us to have similar types of hybrid pathways where we're thinking about courses that we have here that could help students maybe choose a particular career path and then move on through that by taking a couple classes here, being supported with a community partner, as well as being connected to some sort of post-secondary linkage. Very similar to what we do with career vocational programming as it stands right now. The second grant that we're currently have been interviewing for is through the Next Gen Learning, and it's a Mass Ideas grant, and the focus is around school redesign, in which we've had to come forward with us with a general broad concept about how we'd like to see redesign Monitor for the 21st century programmatically. So that's specific to taking a much longer look in terms of what we want to see happening for 9th graders across disciplines, for 10th graders across disciplines, 11th and 12th, with you're looking at it through a progression of an introduction to foundation level courses and experiences, to more of an exploratory in 10th grade, to more of an intensive learning experiences in 11th grade, to more independent learning experiences as 12th graders. So they're preparing for independent learning upon graduating from line. And the final one that we've applied for and we've been able to move on to round 2 for has been through Project Lead the Way, which is a major initiative in the sciences to support the sciences. And so the area that we put a big focus around is engineering design, and we're also looking at other ones in the environmental as well as potentially biomedical. So it's a big, huge, broad, sweeping look at everything that we're doing. I've had more meetings and been provided with more opportunities for community members who really want to be part of this experience and really want to support our students programmatically. And I think we've only just begun, and it's we're looking to take a big leap here over the next few years. But I think people are ready for it. So,
Any questions at this point?
I guess I'm just curious about early childhood and HOMAC or whatever it's called at this point.
Thanks, Brandon. So those, I mean, our early childhood program is as good as it come.
Yeah.
That will continue to stay a major focus of ours.
Okay.
We have a fantastic teacher. She's created a program that is people would wish every school would have something like this, which is an existing pre-K program. She has a post-secondary partner. She has a fantastic advisory committee. Many of her students go on to do internships and pursue education or something in human services after they graduate. And her course, the students receive credit through BCC as well. So her program, Kathy's program, is like the poster child of what you want to see happening.
Great. So that is.
Yeah, that's still
okay,
there.
great.
Absolutely. Thank you for.
It seems to me if we offer programs that are exciting, kids want to participate in, plus there are a lot of career opportunities, those are the kinds of majors we ought to be offering. And one of them that I've been doing a lot of reading about recently is electric cars and automated cars. That's not a long-term horizon. Within a couple of years, the internal combustion engine is going to be a dinosaur.
Right.
But if we could put out the only trained electric car technicians in the county, I mean, what a career opportunity. Every car dealer is going to need people like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And we're at the design and innovation stage right now. I think that would be
Right.
a great one to look at, is electric car.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're trying to think about preparing this next generation of students to really genuinely rebuild much of our infrastructure and to upgrade much of our infrastructure and to be ready to be prepared for major innovation in that area and and many other areas in which we are realizing that we've done major damage to the climate, and we need to think differently about how our energy systems and things like that. So we need to be prepared to be having our students ready to think more integrated.
If we had a course like that, which I think would be a real magnet, I mean, you're gonna have a problem having to turn kids away
Yeah.
because you can't accommodate
Yeah.
as many as you want to take.
Well, the one thing I would say is that just I agree. The one thing we want to get away from is thinking that it's going to be a one course, adding a course versus thinking more integratively about taking our automotive technology program and taking a science teacher who has a really good background in science that can really help students apply learning to be thinking about inventive ways of coming up with projects that would prepare them to do that kind of work that you're describing. So I'm not saying we should be thinking about ways to collaborate to create that,
May I ask
and
a
building
question?
cohorts of students to do that.
My question is, do you, because you work with the students a lot, do you really see interest in trades? And also the other part of the question is, within that program, that say somebody from 9th grade decides to go towards trade, is there going to be a possibility within the program still actually not going to the trade, but the person gets really fascinated by the subject and wants to go into college? Would they still be able to follow?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
100%. Yeah, these should feel like more integrated experiences where students are coming from. Like if we're going to take an applied science class, for example, we're going to be offered. We're hoping the students who would be potentially thinking themselves as wanting to do something in the trades is really encouraging the students who are in our automotive program to want to take it. Students who are taking a wood technology class who are thinking about going into construction trades. Students who are thinking more from an engineering perspective of what the value in taking an applied science class would be. We're trying to build cohorts of students that would kind of cut across disciplines.
Excuse me. So a couple things. I hope I'm not too long with. Thank you, not only Sean, but Dr. Gillen and the school board for initiating this, because Peter and I had a conversation like 2 days after he hired you about similar to kind of what you're talking about. So I've been in the building trades for 20 years now, and at 43, I'm still the young guy.
Right.
It's scary.
Right.
So it's incredible knowing that our school system is taking an initiative to, not just in building trades, but all applied sciences. It's amazing. And so I just want to thank you for being able to do that. The second thing is, as far as infrastructure, what do you see as the infrastructure needs based on what you see the programming becoming?
Yeah, I think that we need to create really adaptable spaces. I think that they're going to need to be bigger, and they're going to need to be. There's got to be. I think that there's got to be a way in which there's a better flow that happens within the context of the way in which our faculty will be accessing those spaces, so that they will be fostering and embodying the collaborative approach that our students are going to need to have to begin with. So I think that that's going to be important. I think our spaces are going to need to be readily adaptable to technology and the pace in which things are changing. And there's potential for that we would be filling that space with things that 10 years later are going to be obsolete. And so we need to be able to have them set up in a way where we know that they can come in and out. And I also think the other thing we have to be thinking about is also we need to be ready to be retraining our workforce. So we need to be creating spaces that will be accessible to the adult community as well, that industry would want to tap into. That if there's a lot of the tradesmen who have to go for professional development have to travel to the Pioneer Valley to do that, and we could potentially, I think it would be great if we could ultimately potentially could become a hub for that type of.
Yeah, I got to go to Southborough or somewhere for my construction.
Right. Yeah. Right. So.
But
that would fit in with what Michelle has emphasized as the school model being more a community resource
Right.
and restoring what ultimately, what used to be a adult ed program that we had here, but that was much more
Right.
for enrichment. I mean,
Yeah.
I took the woodworking with Fred McAllister, and it was just kind of like I learned how to build a bookcase.
Right.
It wasn't for retraining or anything.
Yeah.
But that, the model that we need to look at is making us adaptable for after school as well.
Right.
And I was gonna say in response to Carl's question, you're right on. And when you go down and look as you did during the summer of what we have as an auto shop, it is totally incompatible with your vision and what we are looking at in the future. It needs a huge amount of work. And to meet what Sean has said, that is a dinosaur sitting down there.
Isn't that why we're here?
That's why we're here.
One last thing on,
Yeah.
one last thing on that too is that, when we visited, 3 different vocational schools, and every one of them had, kind of a fairly large open lab environment, where, students were able to really get their hands into whatever the applied experiences were. And then there was kind of a separate, smaller classroom entity as well. So it was like what it would be a lecture space or whatever it might be. But there was definitely some intentionality around 2 separate types of spaces based on the type of learning that was happening. So
I just have one more kind of
Yeah.
antidote to this whole thing, and maybe it's a little braggy too, but, so, my nephew's a senior at Kennett High School in Conway, New Hampshire. And, I was telling Bill this story last week. He's, through the last 4 years, he's been able to take advanced placement and honors classes, regular learning classes. But one of his biggest things that he's been taking since freshman year is a metals class or some sort of career tech class. And the interesting thing with Kennett High School, they actually have a contract with NASA to actually produce, I'll call them widgets for better, whatever they are.
Right.
But they're actually parts that are actually used by NASA.
Right.
And as a result of his work, last summer he actually did an internship with NASA at Houston.
Right.
And now he's looking at places like Purdue and Georgia Tech and
Right.
places like that because of the integrated learning that he was afforded to have.
Right.
So I mean, I think we can bring in something like that.
Right.
We're doing something.
So we're already working with a community partner right now.
Yeah.
Josh Shapiro's up at Extreme Model, working on the project for Extreme Model Railroad and Contemporary Architecture, which is going to be a big part of a museum in North Adams, in which he's actually, helping bring a project in that is like a real project where students are going to be doing real work towards something with an end goal in mind in terms of supporting some sort of initiative. So that would be the idea, would be to be bringing in more opportunities for students to actually be taking on stuff that feels
Real
like
world
it's,
experience.
yeah, and actually Josh used this great example of rather than be having to solve the same math problem that every other student who's open up textbooks had to solve over the years, actually coming up with us putting the challenge of having to think about different ways of teaching concepts that feel more like they're actually applicable.
I have a grandson who's a sophomore, and for the academic geometry course that all of the kids take, they have a big assignment to survey the campus with laser transits and to make, drawings with lasers.
Yeah.
I mean, what a better way to learn geometry.
Right, yeah. I mean, CNC machines, laser cutters, maker spaces, those are, students can really get into things and do some really, really incredibly complex and interesting projects, where they're really integrating their learning in a much deeper way.
Yeah, sorry, just one thing, and that's it. Time here, but just every day on my job sites, I'm using math, not just basic math. I'm using geometry. I'm using all sorts of just basic math and art as well too. There's and even history when we do historic restorations and things like that too. So I mean, that's really what happens. So if you can tie all those things
encourage it. On the topic of these three main focuses, even taking the electric car example, a project that involves electric cars can integrate all three of these different fields. So, you know, it obviously deals with environmental science and considering ramifications on climate change, but it's automotive in the trades, and it involves advanced manufacturing and even, you know, software engineering. There are hard problems with artificial intelligence. Even going beyond that, there are humanities problems that also involves, right? The classic dolly problem, where you have not to go too far into this, but a car that needs to decide whether it's going to, you know, which path it's going to take, if it needs to sort of either prioritize the safety of the driver or prioritize the life of a small child that's running across the street. These are philosophical problems that I think our society is going to have to deal with now, whereas philosophers have been debating them for centuries without any consequence. But they pose real potential to not only integrate these three focuses as they relate to science and technology, but also the humanities. And having a bunch of students sort of considering these big philosophical questions in conjunction with, you know, what it means to design an electric car, I think is a really compelling project work.
Okay.
I have one quick
Yeah,
question.
Rob.
While you're thinking innovatively about changing the curriculum in the school, are there any impediments as it relates to what I'll call minimum requirements that may be stipulated that the curriculum must do, the student must have?
Right. I think that, yes, I think as of right now, state testing in specific fields are definitely dictate much of what is being taught at particularly 9th and 10th grade level in math, science, and English. But I do think that just based on just how much push there is at the state level for these ideas of more working towards mastery, proficiency-based learning, that I think they're going to start to move. They might move further and further away from this more canned approach to testing as a means of determining, a base level of competency and of providing for schools to be more dynamic, because they're seeing the impact that it's had. The charters have really thrived in this new world right now, and the technical high schools, in fact, have thrived in this new world for good reason. The comprehensive high schools are the ones that are really struggling to try to find their way through this. So I think that there could be a bit of an impediment there. Our graduation requirements as of right now are still pretty broadly based, and I think what we needed to actually do is, rather than getting more specific and adding more requirements on, it's actually helping maybe using an idea of like career academies, or I'm thinking more around career pathways, which would provide for students to be able to organize their learning based on an interest level that would lead towards some sort of additional credential, similar to if you were a member of National Honor Society, but actually giving a little more context specific to a particular area that they have an interest in. So I think that's the direction that we can go.
Just thinking of perhaps from where we're headed, trying to convince the audience.
Yeah.
I see kind of a clash in innovative thinking from the academic side and the taxpayers on the other side who do really need things to do that. So, particularly as it relates to infrastructure in the school.
Right.
The emphasis that the school district is moving toward is proficiency-based learning, not performance-based. And the difference between the two is performance-based is the test. Proficiency-based, it's been my belief, and others I think, that if you do well on the proficiency-based curriculum, you should be able to pass whatever the state has. And I asked this to Amy last year when she was here about where the state is, and she feels the state is going to be much more open, because there is pushback against MCAS and the standardized testing. Because the standardized testing hasn't narrowed the gap between the rich and the poor. It is as bad as it ever was when in 1993 this whole thing started. So I see positives there. And then there's another assessment group that's out of the eastern state that's already doing work led by a guy from Holy Cross who has initiated another way of doing things that has been accepted by the state. They got a $50,000 grant to do 5 school districts there to offer a different type of program based on proficiency based. And that's where we are with the Greater Schools program. Okay. We will now look at the sustainable agriculture and environmental science component and, or portion of it. And I want to introduce Vivian Olowski and Devin Arnold. I also want to say that we have a number of graduates here from Monument Mountain. Sean is a graduate of Monument Mountain. Devin, who I had in class, and I remember, U.S. history, is a graduate of Monument Mountain. We have Steve Boyd, a graduate of Monument Mountain, Steve Souls, Jason St. Peter. We have Rich Bradway sitting over here, Steve Bannon. So this is a school district that has oh, Matt, how you doing? All right, Matt, you're very quiet there. Okay. So let me, while Vivian and Devin get going, I'm going to do a brief intro to both Vivian and Devin. Vivian is has a variety of teaching and advisory leadership roles on public policy, social science, sustainability, public health, emergency planning. Her personal experiences are from the University of Wisconsin, Grinnell College, Yale University Library, the Waldorf Steiner School in Great Barrington, the College Sustainability Report Card, Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, and Western Regional Homeland Security Advisory Council. She's also got a long-term volunteer track record. Among the places that she's volunteered her services: Connecticut Food Bank, New Haven Intercity Farm and Market, Massachusetts Food Alliance. She represents the Great Barrington Agricultural Commission on the Berkshire Hills Farm to School program, Great Barrington Master Plan Committee, the Sustainable Berkshire Program of Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, the Massachusetts Local Food Action Plan, and the Massachusetts Association of Agriculture Commissions. Devin, not only just being a graduate of the Berkshire Hills Regional School District, where he now serves as a substitute, and Matt also was a substitute and also worked on that great program after school. Yes.
And he's a swim coach.
And he's a swim coach. And a swim coach. Graduated from, Devin graduated from Prescott College and focused on environmental and social justice. He received a master's degree in sustainable landscape planning and design from the Conway School in Northampton. He's founded and runs Sassafras Land Care, offering ecological landscape services in the Berkshire region. He is presented to the Great Barrington Select Board, the Green Drinks from Great Barrington, and has led walks to the Mount Callister Wildlife Refuge, sponsored by Housatonic Heritage and the Great Barrington Agricultural Commission. So they will talk about sustainable agriculture.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here.
Devin and I have been doing a lot of research and also drawing on our own diverse experiences, and had a chance to talk to Bill and Sean in advance, and also to Michelle, who will be here tonight. But Bill was emphasizing that you have a very tight schedule. So I've written down what I'm going to say, because otherwise, as he knew from our chat together, we have so much information, it's just very easy to go overboard. So please ask questions later, and we'd be glad to expand on it or provide more information later. But just to start with, we're answering the question that you posed, which is, what will new spaces let us do differently? And our vision is that, grounded in a healthy soil for growing food, the new Monument Mountain Resilient Living Laboratory Campus and Green STEAM curriculum will nourish student health, creativity, academic and economic opportunities, along with helping our community overcome climate disruption challenges that we're all going to be facing. Now, I use the term green STEAM, and I realize does that make sense to everyone here? I think you all know the term STEM, but I understand that the latest version is STEAM, which includes the importance of the arts as part of an integrated tech program. And a green STEAM is taking it the next step further. So let's make it clear from the start. The Agricultural Commission does want to encourage the school district to support current farmers and to encourage new people to go into the farming profession. But this is advocated, as a matter of fact, by some of the things that Bill mentioned. The Great Barrington Master Plan, the Sustainable Berkshires Plan that was done by Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, and by the Massachusetts Food Action Plan. But the vision we're presenting is not only for those interested in farming. It's about healthy food, which interests all of us who are eaters. I think that covers most of us here. And it's also about the new high school that will enable students to better prepare for higher education or careers in the rapidly changing realities of the 21st century. Learning design skills, learning how to integrate information from many different fields and work on it actively, empowering them. Now, for example, did you know that food and farming is becoming more of interest in some leading professions like law, medicine, and public health? 3 quick examples. The Harvard Law School has a food law and policy clinic. They have done pioneering research on the very disastrous waste of 40% of our food supply. They've studied it from farm to market to consumers, and they've come up with policy recommendations and laws that can help reduce this food waste, which is a major factor in global warming, and it's also a major factor in social inequities. Also at Harvard, there's a Center for Health, Law, and Policy Innovation, and they've collaborated with the Public Health Department here in Massachusetts and 30 other organizations to develop a Massachusetts Food is Medicine state plan. Certainly that's relevant to not only to agriculture, but to your health curriculum. And looking a little further afield, Tulane University is pioneering a Food is Medicine program for all their doctors. All medical students have to take cooking classes, and then they have to go out in the community and teach cooking classes, because that's how they're going to relate to their patients in the future. So drawing on these and many other leading examples, we suggest that a teaching kitchen for hands-on preparation of healthy meals needs to be a cornerstone of facilities included in a resilient living laboratory campus. The kitchen should also be accessible to the community after hours, giving farmers, gardeners, and others the opportunity to create value-added products in a commercial kitchen and help their bottom line. Now, in planning for next steps, the elephant, so to speak, in the room is the increasing impact of climate disruption in our lives and our food supply. This is how we tie into the food and farming program. The latest Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change had a report saying we have 11 years to cut global climate pollution in half before we face even more cascading climate catastrophes. We're already seeing wildfires in California, superstorms in the Caribbean and on the Atlantic coast, heat waves in the Midwest, and rising seas. And that's just in our country, not to speak of worldwide, where a lot of our food comes from. Now, the Berkshires may or may not escape the worst of climate change, its most severe impacts. At least we don't have the shoreline problems to worry about. However, it's estimated that 85% of our food comes from areas that are vulnerable to drought, flooding, aquifer depletion, loss of pollinators, harmful insect infestations, etc. So this is serious. This is where our food is coming from. Water flow management skills will be in big demand because of flooding issues and drought issues. In the recent Hurricane Florence down in the Carolinas, North Carolina lost approximately 4 million farm animals in just that one incident. It was mainly pigs and chickens. So this is just one hurricane. What does this mean for our food supply in the long term? It's going to happen again, and more frequently. Those are the predictions. Now, I'm not here to bring doom and gloom. I'm actually here to bring what we sent to you in advance, if you had a chance to look at it, that Soil Solutions to Climate Problems. It's narrated by Michael Pollan, the well-known food and farming author, and it talks about how regenerative farming, gardening, and agroforestry methods can help capture and sink carbon back in the soil, where it actually becomes a healthy and productive asset to food production. So we can enrich what we can produce here by using certain methods of farming. And those methods that also help with the soil capture help with water management. So to store water for dry periods and also to prevent extreme runoff during heavy rains. And these techniques need to be part of a living laboratory resilient campus. Perhaps you might consider having more than one building on campus that would integrate outdoor learning programs as an integral part of the whole design and connection between the building and outdoors. So the next 50 years is going to be a lot different from the past 50 years. What we're suggesting will help prepare our students to deal with these unprecedented life-altering challenges. And we're excited to learn from and share with you briefly 3 leading models, which Devin is going to go into. The nationally acclaimed Green STEM program and LEED Platinum Net Zero building design process pioneered at the Hood River Middle School in Oregon. That's the first example. The second one is the Farm and Food System program at Greenfield Community College, where they have an outdoor learning laboratory to complement their classroom work. And also Woven Roots Farm here in the Berkshires, where no-till, bio-intensive, regenerative agriculture practices yield an abundant harvest and also a thriving educational program based on about 1.5 acres of land. Is that correct? Devin will go into more detail about that now, and we're pleased to have Jen Salinetti and Matt Boudreau from Woven Roots Farm with us. And also, in addition, later, if there are other questions, we have the former Ag Commission Chair and local farmer Luke Prima here, and Krisha Perjitska, if I can pronounce her last name correctly, who's a local herb farmer. So we have lots of experience to share with you. So let me turn it over to Devin now, who has a slide program and some more details.